Okay, so one of the I find one of the easiest ways, or maybe not necessarily, not easy, but one of the ways that I find really helps me understand depth perspective of an object is to animate it, is to animate a tumble. So I'm going to make a little, if you take three beads and you string them together, right, they can all be encapsulated, they can all be enveloped together to form this kind of bean-shaped, a pill-shaped object. And I'm going to animate this pill-shaped object tumbling. I'm going to animate, just have it spinning through space. So I'm just going to do my thing, and here goes. So there's this first frame, and frame. Just trying to get the gist of things, and it's going to be a straight through animation, meaning there won't be any keyframes in between. This isn't normally how you'd animate, but I'm just doing this to get warmed up today. And by warmed up, the problem is that when you first look at a piece of screen or canvas, the biggest problem is that it feels flat. I mean, that's the whole problem. When you're warmed up, you actually feel like things are moving into and out of space. And I tell you, when you just wake up in the morning sometimes, or you haven't been drawing for a little while, you need to be warmed up. And you're going to see exactly just how unwarmed up I am, based on how wobbly and wonky this object is. And this is something that you should start if you're having a tough day. If yesterday you were drawing great and then today you're drawing badly, it's because you're not warmed up. You're just not accustomed to that. Because the thing is this, is that when you're creating optical illusions like this, it is not something that comes natural unless you have a special talent with it. It is something that requires a lot of practice, and it's something that weakens over time if you don't keep it up. Now, I know someone's going to say, what program is that you're going to use? Everyone asks me this question. This is TVP Animation Pro, and it is a bitmap-based animation program. Why don't you just use Flash? Because Flash is vector-based, and it is constantly correcting my stroke. It's constantly correcting my brush stroke. And you can't have brush strokes that become more opaque. You can't have faint brush strokes that become more opaque like that. So, pressure response, a lot of good reasons why I would not use Flash for this sort of thing. Flash is good if you have cutout animation, but for okay, now you see I'm running into a bit of a problem in that this pill is wanting to stand up. And by stand up, meaning it wants to do this. It wants to stand, straight up and down. That's not what I want to do. I'm going to have to force it down. So I'm just going to undo that frame. And I think in this case, I'm just going to animate, instead of drawing the whole pill, I'll animate the masses within the ends of the pill. And just handle those moving into and out of space. So I'm starting to care less about the fact that it looks like a pill and looks pretty and whatnot, and I'm caring more about the movement through space. There we are, getting these two end masses to move smoothly, and not just move smoothly, but move dimensionally. You gotta feel like they're really going away and coming towards, because one of the dangers of animation, one of the things that's very hard to deal with, is that your volumes change. It's very hard to prevent things from growing and shrinking. Yes, they're supposed to look like they're getting further and closer, but that's not the same thing as something that grows and shrinks, right? It takes up more space on the screen, but it doesn't grow. It just gets closer and takes up more space on the screen. So I originally started something that was three balls long, and I'm going to have to sort of fight my way back to that. The other thing that I'm going to be having problems with is the fact that things are drifting off center. Right? This pill used to started more or less in the middle of the screen. Right? And look at the size. You see that? The size has changed. This is one of the problems with straightforward animation, is that straightforward animation, it gives you really, really nice smooth movement, but things will drift. You can see it. You can see the proportional drift, and that's when you need. If you want to avoid proportional drift, then you're going to have to create some guidelines and be able to stick with them. So, in this case, I'm going to create. I've just deleted that little segment of animation, and I'm going to create a. I'm going to try and stick to this little path. And maybe what I'll do is, since it's supposed to be tumbling around a center mass, I'll just put the center mass in there. So what I've got now is, if you look at my my layer window, I've got two layers. This is I've got the bottom layer, which is the template, and the top layer, which will be the animated one. And the bottom layer is set on hold so that if I'm on the forward frames, it will hold that animation, right? Even if I stretch this up, I'll always be able to see my template. Kind of an important thing. So let me just throw that layer window back in the top monitor where it belongs, at a site. And oh right, I'm on an area with no animation rates. Okay, so let's begin. Let's put these spheres back. And again, I'll be animating just these individual masses. So I'll have this frame, there's that frame. This time it won't be a straightforward animation. This time I'm going to go with in-betweens. Okay, so now I've got it mounted at the two midway points. I've got frames on the start like this. This is the pill shape, and on the end. And then I'm going to darken one end just so we can make that differentiation. So that's only a 90-degree rotation right there. So let me get another 90 degrees in there. So it's going to be kind of a mirror image of what it was before. So hang on, let me undo that. Now you see I flip it so that when I flip it, I get an after image. I can see, I can even place my pencil here as I flip it, and I can say, this is where that other circle should be. This is where the top, that's where the bottom is. It's kind of like tracing, except you're tracing over an after image rather than an actual image. And by doing that, you can tell how much things are varying. See, if I flip it like this, you can tell it's pretty darn close. Whereas if you're tracing, sometimes, I tell you, the tracing starts to wobble. Like a flip trace is usually much more accurate. So that's good. Now I'm going to throw in one more frame. So this will be where see, I can flip. And this is all using a rock and roll plugin. This is a customization, a Windows-only customization, which I programmed for the PC for TV Paint, which allows me to flip with keyboard shortcuts, and I've got it all mapped on a game controller. So anyway, there we go. So there we have, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 frames, but now I got to get the 45, the 45s. I got to get the in-betweens. So let me throw in frames. There we go. And I'll put this thing on a roll loop. So yeah, by roll loop I mean I'm operating. This is the rock and roll plugin that I got. It allows for smooth, flipping. Okay. So let me throw in some bookmarks in between. Okay, there we go. And now I got to figure out where is that if I'm looking at masses, let's label these masses. There's one, that's mass 1, right? I got to figure out where is 1 going to be in between, right? So if I flip, then I can kind of see, I think it kind of belongs roughly around here as I'm flipping on the game controller. So I'll take my pen away and I'll see how's that moving. Look, it's not bad. It's fairly good. And if anything, I feel it's a little too close to the center. It's like this in this direction. It's a little too close in that direction. So I've drawn it lightly, so I'm not stuck with it. This is why you draw lightly, so that you can perform adjustments. And I think I moved it a little too far. So here, I'll zoom in on that and just see. Yeah, there we are. It feels about right. And now I can, apply a little more pressure to it. So why don't I do the other one as well? So let me just zoom out. So this is going to be mask 2. I'm not going to bother labeling it. And let me think. I'm just flipping back and forth. And the other thing I'm doing right now is I'm kind of defocusing my eyes. I'm allowing my eyes to blur a little bit. And I'm just looking at where this guy and this guy are. And while I'm doing that, I'm kind of trying to envision. It feels like it's kind of going to be around there. It's a lot of eyeballing, man. But that's the thing is that if you're cooking, if you're a chef, then you have to taste your food. Okay, that feels a little too linear. By linear, I mean that the path between here and here, it feels like I'm doing a straight line, right? I should really be kind of moving outwards a bit. So I'm going to do an adjustment. Okay, that felt, you can feel that it's dipping down. You can feel that it's dipping down like that. So it's too far down. That's still too linear. So that's what it is. You're going to have to flip, sense where it's going, make the adjustment. That's better. Okay. And then move on. And this is, that was just one in between. Right there was just one in between. And let's continue. So this one. Oh, hang on, wait a minute. Let me see which direction. Okay. So I got it wrong. So this is where this is 1. And that's 1. Okay. So you have to flip and feel. Okay, now it feels like it's a little too high. No. See, the thing is that your in-betweens are guided by, your keyframes. That would be, this is one keyframe, that's another keyframe here. I can feel, that it's, when it's off. I'm looking at the bottoms, I'm looking at mask 2 now. Okay, it feels too low. And, you're comparing, you got to be able to draw a line straight through. Yeah, it feels about right here. Yeah, that feels good. Feels good, man. Okay, so 1 has to move down to here. So I'm making this transition right now. Feels linear. Feels linear, man. Okay, feels too low. Okay, let's get rid of that. It's like if you keep failing, then just get rid of it and then try again. Feels low. Feels odd. Feels like it's wide now. You know what it is? I'm not doing this. I have to really fuzz my eyes out and then kind of feel. Okay. I think the problem is my keyframes are not very well spaced. That is probably why I'm having so much trouble with this. But I'm still trying to, if you try and force through with 4 keyframes, you're going to suffer as I am. So, well, there we go. Now this one has to go to the other transition, so it's not just teleporting. We don't just teleport through linearly. You got to push it out a bit to the side. feels low. Feels like it's too far over. Something as simple as this, you know, it's been a while since I've done any animating, so I'm very rusty right now. And you can see why, you know, that's what it means when you become rusty, is it's just you feel, oh, you lose a lot of accuracy, you just stop feeling. So I mean, it doesn't matter how nice that last drawing. Sometimes what happens is if you're doing a lot of painting, which you know I've been doing lately, I've been doing a lot of painting, and towards the end of the painting, you spend a lot of time cleaning up the drawing. And while you're cleaning up, you know, it's just you're trying to smooth brush strokes together, and you do a few days of that, and I tell you, it really kills your sense of depth after a while. So it's like after you, and the other problem is that after you finish like a really detailed painting, it makes it makes you think, oh man, I'm top of the world, I'm king shit, I just made this really beautiful finished painting. And then what happens is really your basics start to fall slack. So, when you try to start something new, your basics have fallen slack, and suddenly your confidence takes a huge dive. Um, so that's why every time you start a new painting or a new drawing, it's important to get warmed up. And there's nothing warms you up like using TVP Animation Pro, or just animating and getting used to the feeling of trying to spin something around. Here, let me see if I can throw in more in betweens. Let me just disable these bookmarks. Just throwing in every other, well, if you see on here, what I was doing was I was just throwing in, in between frames. And so in between each one of these, I was just spacing them out. And then, yeah, you can, you can see it stepping through. You can see in the blank spots, where that used to be. Yeah, I've just, like, that's the thing is, talking and animating at the same time is really hard. So I went silent for a while. It's not particularly interesting to watch another person do it. It's just, it takes so much concentration. Right? So really, herky-jerky, very rusty, but you get the idea. This is just, this is just one simple object, and to get animation done right without, lots of lumpiness and lots of, herky-jerky, it's hard. It's really hard. And this is probably like one of the simplest shapes that I can think of animating, right? If you want to try tumbling something even harder, you can do a cross. Try tumbling. Tumble this, right? What I've done is I've just tumbled, one arm of the cross, right? You can try tumble that, right? And if you're really feeling, adventurous, then you can try tumbling. Add parts to it. The more parts that you add, the harder it gets to tumble this object. Right? But I tell you, after you do these exercises, like after you do an animation, you can get it to work right. It feels, I tell you, sketches come a lot easier. I'm like, no joke. So anyway, yeah, talk to you later.